Welcome to Conversations on Sex, Addiction, and Relationships. I'm Wendy Conquest, and I'm here with Tim Stein and Dan Drake. Jeannie Vitoni isn't with us today, but she will be with us next time. Today, we're going to do a mailbag episode. So basically, you can write to us with any questions or issues or concerns. And as a team, then we will listen to what you are asking or your concern, and then we'll address it. And so that's what we're going to do today. Tim is going to read us the situation being presented from somebody that wrote in.
Yeah, this question is from somebody who's asking about high-functioning sex addiction, asking about people that have attended SAA and SLAA, but they don't really relate to the acting out of your own control. Wanting to know these are the people that they see as feeling like they're have always been in control, may have a little bit of a narcissistic dimension to them, but they're wondering about this difference between like social control, high functioning, and most of the stories in SAA and SLAA and the S programs talk about people feeling out of control with their relapses. Wondering if there's a missing component about people that are not actually out of control because they're high functioning, and what to do with those people when they don't identify with that sense of being out of control.
So this sort of reminds me of people that drink every day at 5 o'clock. And so they're not alcoholics because they're not out of control and they haven't lost their jobs and they haven't lost, maybe their marriage, but they're drinking every day. On the outside, it doesn't look like they're out of control at all. They're very controlled around their drinking. But the question is, how is that drinking or how is that pattern influencing other areas of their lives? So I almost feel like this person is focusing on one aspect of how the addiction works. And, but it's a great question of if you're an addict coming into recovery, do you always feel a sense of being out of control? I don't think so. I think that is sort of revealed as things go on for some people. But I've had many addicts say, I don't really think I've got a problem. I don't think there's anything wrong, but my partner does, and that's why I'm here. I lied about some things and she's upset, so here I am.
I mean, I've heard addicts sort of with that kind of energy talk about it as, you know what? I got to be the guy that other guys wanted to be, and I got to be the guy that women were lined up to come be with. That's what I wanted to do. And in some cases, yeah, that might be men behaving badly or women behaving badly. But it also is one of those things where addiction can be insidious. Sure, you want to be the guy that other men want to be, but are you also okay just being yourself? Is that an option or is it, a default that you have to sort of put on and lean into this being the big man on campus or the bro code or whatever we're calling it?
And then the irony, this is kind of maybe an aside, is that when I'm talking with people who have had that experience, it usually happens at a particular time in their lives, but there's another time in their life where they weren't like that, that the girls didn't like them, that they couldn't get a date, or they were too scared because they had acne, or they were tall and lanky and they didn't fit in, or, different things that made them feel very insecure and really hit at their sense of confidence and self-esteem. And then all of a sudden, there's a shift, usually physically, and now they get to almost I don't want to say get revenge, but get a piece of what they were denied
Yeah.
earlier.
It's a tricky one. I've got a few thoughts after hearing the question and what you both are saying. I've definitely seen some people are more compulsive than others. Some people have less, we'll call it compulsivity. So they seem to have more control over the behaviors. So I guess we can call that higher, lesser functioning, maybe. I don't know if I'd put it in those terms necessarily, but I have seen that a couple things. if you have control of the behaviors, why are you here at a 12-step meeting? Is it to what you said, Wendy, that I'm okay with it, but my partner's not? There's another problem then. We have betrayal because you didn't disclose. If you're fine with it, then why not disclose this to your partner ahead of time? Why lie about it? To me, that's the big problem. Even if, maybe that's the other thing. Is it addictive or compulsive? Maybe not, but why lie about it? You knew you're going to get in trouble about it, or you didn't want to face the person's response. I know there's other problems with that. Now you've led to betrayal because you weren't upfront and you were secretive. So that to me says not everything's under control because you felt shame or you felt at least you weren't want to be judged or punished. I don't know. I feel like that might just be a defense. I'm under control. But if it's okay, then why hide it? Be out there. But you didn't. I guess that's the thing. You didn't. So
Yeah.
we can't say that it's fully there. There's another thing too. I think there's a piece of it that maybe I'm reading into, kind of implied by the question is it's not an uncommon thing I see with people I work with. They'll go to a 12-step meeting and find all the reasons why, well, I'm not like that guy. I'm not like this person. You find all the reasons to say, I'm not that, which is another defense. I think it's another protection. I'm not as bad as this person, or I'm not as compulsive as this person, as opposed to then how do I relate to these people? What is common here? So it feels like there's a few things that are saying I'm protecting from something that I'm not actually open and humble enough, or I don't know, engaged enough to say that this has created damage at the very least for my relationship and for my partner. If I don't, and maybe I'm protecting myself from the damage it's actually caused me. So I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but there feels like that's not a common protection I see people coming in with, that someone else is worse off than them or more defective or more whatever, and they fill in the blank of why they're better than.
Oh, definitely. I mean, when people first come into 12-step meetings, I think either it's, oh my gosh, I totally belong here. And or another response is, oh, I'm not like any of these people. I mean, look at that guy. He's doing those behaviors. I never did those behaviors. I'm not like him. I wouldn't do that. And yet I'm seeing prostitutes, but that's okay. It's justifying their own behavior, but pointing out all the ways that they're different and maybe not as bad, in quotes, not as bad as those other people. And it takes tremendous courage to step into a 12-step meeting, whether you are doing it because you really think that there's a problem and you want to get help, or you're doing it because your partner feels that you have a problem and you're being asked to check this out, or your therapist is saying, hey, this is part of our protocol. It's incredibly courageous, I would say, to even step foot in there. So you get to the meeting and then you're hearing all these different pieces around different people's experience, which in itself is a very intimate experience. So I would think that there would be a lot of defenses that come up
Yeah.
of why I'm different
Well,
or I don't belong here.
and there's also this piece, and I mean, let's take a moment to sort of be clear that not everybody who acts out sexually is an addict. And we do a
Sure.
lot of work on the front end, as CSATs of assessing, determining, making sure that there's an addiction pattern going on. So not everybody who fits this high functioning thing and they walk in the meetings, maybe it doesn't resonate for them because maybe they're not an addict. There's a couple other things that come to mind for me. One is if they're ending up in a meeting and this is their dynamic, I'm making the assumption that they didn't walk in there on their own, that they didn't walk into that meeting because they felt like there was a problem. If they're like, I'm not out of control, this is kind of how I want to do, guys want to be me, women want to be with me, this feels good to me, why are you walking into a 12-step meeting in the first place? My assumption is that you're walking into a 12-step meeting because you're in a relationship and your partner is hurt by your behaviors and your betrayals and that you're not having fidelity to the relationship. So the question that comes up for me is if you're in a relationship and yet this is how you see yourself, why are you in a relationship in the first place? And if you're in a relationship because you really want to be partnered, but your behavior is creating the exact opposite, what's going on there? And if it's creating the opposite of what you are claiming that you want, there's another process at work that you're probably not aware of, whether that's addiction or something else. So what's going on with that? The other piece that I will say is I don't wish addiction on anyone, but recovery is a beautiful thing. And anybody who can get recovery, I mean, I'm leaning in and I'm acknowledging there are some things that I can't do on my own and I need other people. I'm actively looking at what my character defects are and working to shift those so that I can live my life more in line with the values that work for me. I'm actively being aware of when I impact other people and I'm making amends. I'm looking at my life, and when I try to walk this path and when I'm not walking this path, I actively clean that up and try to get myself back there. That's a recipe for life to be really good. And so part of me is, okay, maybe you don't feel like you're an addict and that doesn't fit for you. There's the 12-step advocate in me that says, yeah, but maybe you lean into recovery anyway because it would be really good for you regardless.
That might be a hard sell.
Yeah.
I hear you, Tim. Recovery, I think it opens up all these different neural pathways in the brain. And I think it encourages people to really do a deep dive into values. But I don't know if I've ever known someone who wasn't an addict that did 12-step work, but it's an amazing system all on its own, the way that it addresses all the different dynamics of being a human being. I did want to say, I wanted to ask you guys one question that came up, which is when people are in the addiction, is there a feeling of being in control when in the addiction? And I'll just say my answer is I think there is. I think there can be a tremendous feeling of power and control when in the cycle, even though it's out of control. But I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I guess it depends. I don't know. I think you're right. I think there's some people that feel more out of control than others that I've seen, but that's part of the distorted reality that I am in control when I'm really not.
Yeah.
If I'm really in control, then can I just say the easy thing to say is just don't do those things then. Stop the behaviors.
Yeah.
If you're
I mean,
really in
because I've
control, then stop it.
I've certainly had clients who say, I don't know, it works for me. The addiction works for me. I don't understand why I need to change. I get it. My partner's upset, but this has been working for me for a long time.
But aren't those two different things? Okay, if it is, then you can't sign up for both things. You can't be in a relationship with someone who is not okay with this. I mean, it's not working for you in this current situation that you're in. I think that's the thing we have to come to. It's not working for you. Or maybe it was at some point, and I think that's part of the coping strategy. It worked, and I think that's what an addict brain says is I've got a solution. This promises to help you and this promises to get you through, and yet it leads to
Yeah.
problems. I don't know if this is an AA saying, but first it was fun, then it was fun with problems, and then it was just problems. So it worked, and then it worked sort of, and then it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I just got done going through Patrick Carnes's The Recovery Zone Volume 1 with a group of guys. And in the end, one of the things he talks about is, yeah, our addiction was a bargain with chaos. It takes away the overwhelm. It helps you to manage. And I sometimes tell people, of course, it helped you to survive your childhood and not be overwhelmed and not be locked up somewhere. It worked in that way. But the bargain you made to do that created all this other chaos.
Mhm.
And it has done that. What I think about addictions, and like from my own experience, it's interesting because does it always feel out of control? And my initial answer is, yeah, I mean, I look back and it was like completely out of control.
Look back though.
Yes, with that
Exactly.
perspective.
I don't think that in the midst of it, I felt as out of control. There were moments where it felt out of control. There were aspects of it that seemed out of control. But I also remember very distinctly having a conversation with a close friend of mine who was saying, "Oh, I get it. It's kind of an addiction." And I remember saying, "This is not an addiction."
Yeah.
Until, like 5, 10 years later, it was like, yeah, this might be an addiction. So if there's this kind of compulsive pattern going on and I'm in control and I get to do what I want and I feel good about it and this whole I didn't do anything I didn't want to do.
Yeah. And I think there's another piece, right? Especially with this particular person that wrote in about this person. is, I guess the question that I would ask would be, okay, great. You've got a high-powered job. You're using the addiction, get your hit off of that's fine, or whatever we want to call it. And you're making a lot of money. Let's just assume you're making a lot of money. You've got really beautiful cars and vacations, everything. Are you happy?
Yeah.
Are you happy? And I think that could be the cutting
Mm.
edge of the question. Let's not talk about you being out of control or in control or whatever. What are you feeling?
Yeah. But I also think that's a little bit of a loaded question because we have to clarify it because happiness doesn't mean that you're entertained in the moment.
You're
Happiness,
talking about serenity or like a depth to it,
True joy,
exactly.
right? True
joy.
joy.
That there, I know a lot of people that have a lot of money that buy a lot of stuff, they do a lot of things. They're not satisfied by that. It doesn't stick.
Right.
It doesn't give them a sense of peace and calm and I would say, and true happiness in their core.
Yeah, and the distinction between happiness and excitement. You can be excited about something, and how does that differ from happiness?
When you were talking, Wendy, one of the things that came up to my mind is the difference between my own perception and an external, other people looking at things and making sense of it. We see this in our office all the time. I do. I assume you do as well. People that walk in there like, I don't think that this is a problem. The example that always comes up for me is not porn. Yeah, I'm looking at this. It's not pornography, therefore it's okay. And from their perception, it's fine. But from an outside perception, we can look at that behavior and say, it's still fitting into the same patterns as everything that was going on in your addiction, and it's going to lead you to the same place. And so part of what I think gets inherent in this question about the high functioning addicts is maybe their ego defenses are just so well developed that while people from the outside can look at them and say, this behavior is problematic and it's going to take you to a really dark place, their internal perception is, I don't feel like I'm out of control at all and everything's great. I was just going to say, goodness knows there are plenty of people who told me that my behavior was problematic and it wasn't, I couldn't see it. I was
Right.
too close. It looked fine from the inside.
Right. I know someone you're talking about, high net worth individual, really successful and self-professed, has a really big ego. So this person, he opts and he goes to primarily AA meetings. He goes to these meetings and he chooses meetings not for, the elites or for the people that are in the same kind of echelon as him. He goes to meetings where it's primarily people that are just off detox, that they're maybe right off the streets or they're mentally ill. He goes to those meetings because he knows his own ego can starts to convince himself of certain things that I'm somehow better than, or, all the rationalizations. And he's, okay, it's really helpful for me because I'm that guy. I'm this guy. There's no difference between this person and me. Yes, I have a successful job and I have these things, but I think that's a different level of looking at yourself and a different level of humility to kind of say, yes, maybe it's not as compulsive as some other people. Or maybe I haven't gotten this and I haven't, maybe it hasn't led to that level of pitiful and comprehensible demoralization. That might be true. And yet, I'm no different. Can I see some of the similarities? And I feel like that's the thing that I try to encourage with my clients is what areas of similarity can you keep seeing as opposed to how much better I am? I feel like there's this dialectic of compare and despair. Some people, I'm so much worse than, I'm so much less than someone else. I think the flip side's the could be the key too. I'm so much better than. And I feel like it's just the flip side of the same coin is that me still trying to pretend and prove to myself how much better I am versus on the inside, I'm actually trying to just prove that to myself because I actually don't feel that way.
But
Yeah.
Dan, with that story is maybe the key is I can't be intimate. It's too scary to be connected. It's too scary to be intimate with these people. So I'm just going to say that I'm not like them. I'm not like them. And so therefore, I don't need to engage. And what this person that you just described, he's found a way to strip that away. And now I am no different. We're all the same. We're all struggling. We're all suffering. and, kind of we're in this together, kind of, which
Mm-hmm.
I find just so beautiful, really, and touching.
So, what are our last thoughts on these high profile, I'm not out of control guys that aren't resonating with the powerlessness of the addict stories?
And I think the first thing is you can't fight someone around that. You can't convince them, you can't fight them. And a different tact might be okay, that's fine. Who do you connect with?
Yeah.
What's your value? Coming back to value, is a value of yours to be really seen and heard by somebody else? And if so, has that happened for you? Have you experienced that?
Yeah, what I hear you saying, it reminds me of where we talk about, I guess, therapists being the Columbo. You know, you said this, and that makes total sense, but help me figure out how that fits with this. But what I hear you saying is if that's the piece going on, that probably what we're dealing with is somebody who has defended themselves so strongly that they're not able at this particular time to see the incongruencies that are in their life.
Mm.
Yeah, and I had a thought and I just lost some of it. So sorry, but I feel like there's something about this that maybe it isn't as competitive. Great. That's fine. I mean, but is that the real question that we're looking for? What do you really want? Sometimes when you put it out, is this lifestyle what you really want? Or is it the partner, what you have over here, that you're in a committed relationship with someone? I'm not forcing anyone to come see me. They come because they choose to. So if you don't want to do this work with your intimate partner, okay, that's going to create some problems, but that's your choice. But do you really want to engage in this other lifestyle or do you want your relationship? And I think we can get caught up in, is it compulsive? Is it not? Is it an addiction or not? But we've got betrayal on some level, most likely.
Yeah.
How do we heal that? And then at the very least, if this relationship isn't going to work out, how do you live in your full authentic? Because you're not authentic. You can't say that someone who's coming to a 12-step meeting because they're told to, there's betrayal. So you're not living authentically with yourself. So figure out what that is and live it.
That's a great place to stop for today. So if you like this episode, please rate us or like us, subscribe. We'd love for you to subscribe so that you know when new episodes are coming out. And if you do have questions, you can write to us at conversations.sar@gmail.com and we will get to them. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.